Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Elder Scrolls Online build video with me, Sherman. Today guys, we're going to be taking a look at a newer build, if you will. Something I've tried in the past and I used to play a lot, but with some adjustments and some changes. So let's go ahead and get into it, but before we do, as always, a disclaimer: this is not a meta build. This isn't even RP build. This is what I would call a character build. So this is a build that is made for people looking for something that fits within the guidelines of something meta-ish and non-meta-ish. So it kind of fits in between the middle there. It is made to be played in all content. It can be used in dungeons, trials, PvE, overland. It can be adjusted for PvP. If you're a PvPer and you know, like, PvP setups and stuff, this can work there as well. It's a really good build for it, and it's fantastic in PvE. Let's go ahead and get started by taking a look at the build. This is the Blazing Battlemage. So this is a heavy armor DPS mage. I know it sounds a little crazy, but it works out really well. Dark Elf is what I chose for it. Dragonknight, of course. But Dark Elf is one of the better races, I would say, for this, because of the fact that you get 1,980 max magicka and stamina, and then you get the weapon spell damage. It doesn't give you a lot of mag recovery, but if you want mag recovery, you can kind of build a little bit for it, which is nice. But let's go ahead and take a look at this. So we have 33,000 max magicka, 26k max health, 18k max stamina. We do have 1227 mag recovery, 589 health recovery, 724 stamina recovery. We do have 3699 spell damage with a 40% spell crit, 2,339 spell penetration. And I know some people are going to say that's a little low, but it actually works out really well for the way this build works. Moving on to spell resistance and physical resistance, we have a 19,000 spell, 15,000 physical. This really allows for you to be a little bit more upfront in the fight. Not necessarily like standing right next to the tank, but like standing really close. It's more of a melee ranged type damage dealer, so you really got to be up close. So that's why we have the higher resistances. That's why we use the heavy armor instead of light armor, or a mix of light and heavy. It's just that combination of, hey, I want to get in that fight and I want to really help with DPS. So that's where this comes into play. Thief Mundustone, we do have Major Prophecy at all times. That's the spell crit. And then we have Major Savagery, also at all times, and Witch Mother's Potent Brew is the better food for this, but you can use others if you want to. Artaeum Takeaway Broth is actually, no, it's not the Artaeum Takeaway Broth. It is there is a food or a drink you can get, another one that's very similar to this. It gives you more max magicka, more max health, and more mag recovery. That is actually the better one, but it's a gold food, and it's a little bit harder to get. That's why I say Witch Mother's Potent Brew. Alright, moving on now to the gear. So, taking a look at the gear here, it's not really complicated build. It's actually quite easy, and it's quite good. And it's more or less right now set up for, like, it's more of an introductory build into trials, like moving into trials from dungeons, than it would be a true trial build. There's other sets I would suggest using if you were playing in trials more than the way this is set up, but you wouldn't be able to set it up the same way. You would have to make some adjustments to make it in heavy armor and not so much in or you would have to switch more to light or heavy. Like, you'd have to make that choice in how you'd want to set it up. But there are sets that work really good for that. Alright, so taking a look at the sets I have equipped here, we have the Grothdar set. This is actually a really great set for close combat mag DKs because of the fact that you're gonna be right there anyways, and this set does an AoE around you in an 8-meter radius, and it just deals tons of fire damage. I mean, that's what it's designed to do. And as you can see, the one piece adds max magic, a 2-piece. When you deal damage to an enemy within 8 meters, you have a 10% chance to create lava pools that swirl around you, dealing 2,268 flame damage to all enemies within 8 meters of you every 1 second for 5 seconds. And that effect can happen every 10 seconds. If you can keep the dots applied, this thing's going off every 10 seconds. So it's going to stay up 100%. But because you have that 5-second window between the time it starts and it ends, and then you have 5 seconds between there and when you can reactivate it, that's where it kind of falters off. But it's still a really good and powerful set for what it does. Alright, moving on to the next set, we are using Curse of Julianus, or the Julianus set. Now, Julianus is in a hard set to get. It's a craftable set in Hrothgar. It's actually one of the more powerful sets you can craft for a mag DPS character. And that's because of the 2, 4, and, well, you know, the 5-piece thing. So the 2-piece spell crit, 3-piece max mag, 4-piece spell crit, and then the 5-piece spell damage. And yeah, it just makes a really powerful setup. So moving on now down here to the jewelry, or the jewelry and weapons, we are using the Elfbane set. Now this is a PvP set. It drops in Cyrodiil, or Battlegrounds, one of the two. You can buy this from other players, and the reason why I'm using it for this particular setup is because it's actually a really good set for a heavy armor DPS type build, because of the fact it's max magic on the 2-piece, 3-piece is spell damage, 4-piece is spell damage, and it really helps the DK with amplifying its damage over time. So while in combat, increase the duration of your flame damage over time abilities by 5 seconds. Now, this does not stack with beam or channeled effects. We're not using any beam or channeled effects with this. This is primarily for a lot of the damage over time that we do, like from our different flame abilities. So this just adds 5 seconds to them. It makes it a lot easier for the rotation as well, because of the way this rotation works. You want that higher uptime of flame damage, so you can do a couple more hits with heavy attacks to keep your resources coming in. And I'll get to that when I show the rotation on the target dummy after we get through the skills and the CP. Alright, so now, moving on to the traits, enchants, and such, and armor type that we're running. So on the helm, we're running a medium helm with a light belt. This is going to give us a better way to take advantage of the heavy armor resistances. So running the medium helm and the light belt allow you to do that. We are running a reinforced chest for the heavy chest for the higher armor resistance value. And then on all the smaller pieces, we're running all heavy as well, and including the legs. With the traits, we're running 2 invigorating, 1 on the helm, 1 on the legs. And this is just for that little bit of extra health or mag recovery, really. And it does help later on with like stam recovery and things like that, because it gets us to that little bit higher number. So we are getting those resources back a little bit more comfortably. Now, we do have an 18k max stamina, which is going to allow us for greater blocks, amount of blocks, dodge rolling, things like that. We're not going to be burning through resources as fast. So that's why we go with the invigorating trait there. Now, on the smaller pieces, we are running 4 divines. This is going to allow us to take advantage of that Thief Mundus Stone a little bit better. You could, once you become really good with the build, you can drop the invigorating and go divines there, but I would leave the chest reinforced no matter what, because you're going to want that greater amount of resistances. It gives you greater survivability so you can play the way this build is meant to be played, which is right up front next to the tank, or, you know, next to the other DPS. It's a melee ranged DPS, so you want to be right up close. Alright. So, on the enchants, we are running 3 tri-stats on the bigger pieces, the helm, chest, and legs. That's going to give you a greater amount of magicka, health, and stamina across the board, and it's going to allow you to get those higher health pools, the higher magicka pools, and also the higher stamina pools, which gives you better resources for blocking, dodge rolling, and that kind of stuff, because you're going to need it in some situations, especially in trials when you're starting out in them. There's a lot of area of effect and things like that can happen, so dodge rolling to get out of them, or to avoid being hit, that kind of thing. So having those tri-stats with the higher resources really helps. If you become really, really good with this build, you can drop some of these tri-stats if you want to, but I would suggest not, because they do help. Alright, moving on to the smaller pieces, we are running 4 max magicka. This is to give us a higher magicka pool. It allows us to have that just higher resources in max magicka. Alright, moving on to the jewelry. We are running the 3 Elfbane here, and then with that we're running 2 Tri-Rune Rings. This is to give you more of the tri-stat effect, giving you more magicka, health, and stamina. And on these 2 we are running spell damage, enchants. On the necklace we are running a Bloodthirsty. This is going to increase your damage against enemies under 90% health by up to 350 weapon and spell damage. And then it adds extra mag recovery on this, so we have that extra mag recovery just to give us enough mag recovery that when we can focus our rotation on a dungeon boss or a trial boss, you're not burning through resources as fast, because you're getting this much back every 2 seconds. So it really helps, you know, kind of sustain you a little better, especially in heavy armor. Because you're not getting the reduced cost in magicka. So, alright. Now moving down to the weapons, we are running dual fire staves. You're going to run fire staves on both bars for a reason. It's so you can keep the burning status effect up. And that just helps your overall DPS, but it also helps your group's DPS too as well. Because the more damage you do, that applies to your group's DPS, which means things will die faster. So on the 2 weapons, we are running an Nirnhoned fire staff with a flame damage enchant. That flame damage enchant is there to apply burning status effect, primarily. The Nirnhoned is there to amplify the staff's damage, to give you greater damage when you're on the front bar, when you're focusing on your spammable and your heavy attacks. On the back bar, excuse me guys, I don't mean to keep clearing my throat, just a habit in the morning. Or something I have to do in the morning. So on the back bar, running infused with a weapon damage enchant. You can see that weapon damage is increased because we're using that infused staff. And again, a flame staff. This is going to give you 452 extra spell damage on top of your regular spell damage. And it gives you that 452 extra weapon damage, which helps with your bash attacks. Like if you got to interrupt somebody, getting that little bit of extra damage when you do bash them is going to give you it kind of gives you a way to kind of weave that bash into a rotation. So it's going to give you just that extra boost of damage, which is really nice. Alright, so now that we've seen the gear, we're going to go talk about skills and what skills work best with this setup. Alright, so moving on to the skill bar. Or the skills. So I will suggest this every time with all of my builds. Always unlock all the passives to the things you use the most first, along with the skills that are on the bar. So all the skills that you see on both bars, you're going to want to make sure you get them on the bars as quickly as you can so you can start using them to get them maxed out for when you get to max level. You can play this build properly. Everything else you can unlock as you progress further in the game, and as you unlock more skill points and more effectively can play the build. But yes, unlock all your passives to your class skills, your weapon skills, your armor, world skills, guild skills, alliance war. In alliance war, you don't need to unlock all of them, but your racial passives. And then on your crafting, alchemy, medicinal use, and provisioning, gourmand and connoisseur, super important to unlock these for long-term play, especially with the new CP system. So let's go back up here and talk about the skills we have unlocked. So the skills we have on our bar. Starting with the first skill, we are using Molten Whip. Now, Molten Whip is actually a really powerful ability that not a lot of people use as a spammable in dungeons a lot of times on a DK. But with a lot of the new changes, this ability is a very powerful spammable in dungeons. So, and this is why I said this is more of a melee DPS, mag DPS, and that's why we wear the heavy armor. But as you can see, it deals almost 9k flame damage when you're unbuffed. It actually deals almost 12k when you're totally buffed up. If you strike an enemy that is immobile or stunned, you set them off balance, which is really good with this ability. And then while slotted, whenever you activate a different Ardent Flame ability, you gain a stack of Seething Fury, which increases the damage of your Molten Whip by 33% and your weapon and spell damage by 75 for 5 seconds. This effect can stack up to 3 times. So on our front bar here, and even on our back bar, we're going to be using a lot of the Ardent Flame abilities. So we're actually going to be able to stack this up, the Seething Fury, quite a bit, and you're going to be able to get really high spell damage because of it, and you're going to be able to maintain that really well. So you're going to get that three stacks of 75, and it just adds so much more to your DPS. All right, moving on to the next ability we have on our bar. This is Burning Embers, another great damage up front, damage over time ability. So this deals slash enemy with dealing flame damage for 4,500 flame damage, and then an additional 17,129 flame damage over 14 seconds. It heals you for 78% of the total damage inflicted when the effect ends. And then enemies hit by the initial hit are afflicted with the burning status effect. So this is how you can keep up that burning status effect, but it only applies for the duration, the 14 seconds. So having that enchant on your bar allows you to keep it applied permanently. So that like 100% uptime. Alright, moving on to the next ability we have on our bar. This is Flame Reach. Now, this is a really good damage up front, damage over time ability. It allows you to keep dots applied and sustain dots for a longer period when you have multiple dots. So this is another dot that we're going to keep up. It deals flame damage up front and flame damage over 10 seconds. Next ability, an AoE flame ability, really good. And that is Eruption. Now, if you don't want to use Eruption, you can use in the weapons skill line, the Destruction Staff, you can use Pulsar here, which does an AoE flame damage to, deals additional damage, flame damage to enemies with lower health. So it's kind of got that execute kind of thing for mag dealers that are using flame staffs. The reason I use this, though, is because, one, it does an AoE debuff of movement speed. So it reduces movement speed by 70% and deals flame damage every second. It also deals 7k, roughly, flame damage immediately. So it deals a burst of damage right away, and then it deals damage every second. It does last 18 seconds, which also makes it really good for crowd control, especially in some of those more trash mob heavy dungeons and trials. It makes clearing those so much easier. Next ability we have on our bar is Flames of Oblivion. Now this is a great ability because when you activate it, it basically fires fireballs every 2 seconds, dealing or it fires a fireball every 5 seconds at 2 enemies. Sorry, dealing nearly 7,000 damage. While having it slotted, you get Major Prophecy and Major Savagery, increasing both spell and weapon critical. And then the ability also scales off your highest offensive stat, so you can use this both on stamina DPS and mag DPS, but we're using it for a mag character, and it's very powerful. Next ability we have on our bar is Eye of the Flame. Now this is a destruction staff ability. You're not going to be using this as much as you do your other ultimate on the back bar, but we have this here because it does become a very useful, like, trash clearing tool. It is super expensive in ultimate, but don't stress it. You will be getting quite a bit of ultimate pretty fast. Not super fast, but pretty fast. So this one creates a cataclysmic storm around you that builds up for 2 seconds, then lays waste to all enemies nearby, dealing 7,418 flame damage every second for 7 seconds. A really, really good damage ability. Also, I want to talk a little bit about why we have this ability on the bar, and why I said we gain ultimate pretty quick. So we have this ability here, it's called Battle Roar, and, or not Battle Roar, the Mountain's Blessing, sorry. So, when you cast an Earth Runner ability, you gain Minor Brutality for 20 seconds, increasing your weapon damage by 10%. It actually applies to your group, so, or you and your group game that for 20 seconds, but if you're in combat, you also generate 3 ultimate, and you can do that every 6 seconds. So you actually have 2 Earth and Heart abilities you'll be casting during your rotations, and you will be able to keep this up. Basically, keep 3 ultimate coming in every 6 seconds the whole time if you wanted to. And it really does help. So, moving on to the back bar. First ability we have is a Ardent Flame ability, and this is our Engulfing Flames. Now, remember what it said over here about this? Every time you activate a Ardent Flame, activate a different Ardent Flame ability, you gain a stack of Seething Fury. We have this on the back bar for that purpose, so we can keep that Seething Fury coming in from the Molten Whip. And that is Engulfing Flames. So this deals damage up front and damage over time. This is a conal AoE. That means it bursts out in front of you and hits all enemies that get caught in that cone of fire. So really good damage up front, really good damage over time. But the nice thing is that affected enemies take more damage from all flame damage based attacks on your offense, and it's based on your offensive stats with a minimum of a 10% damage taken. So, and right now its current value is 10%. So if I deal damage with this, it applies a debuff to them, which makes them take 10% more flame damage. And it doesn't affect just the one you hit, like the initial one you hit. It affects all of them, all the ones you hit. So it makes really good for trash clearing. And this is going to be the first ability you're going to fire off on the back bar. Next ability we have is Blockade of Fire. Now this one I took because of its duration. It's got a 14-second duration. And remember, all flame damage abilities you cast get an extra 5 seconds attached to them. So this is actually 19 seconds of flame damage. So it basically puts down a wall of fire that deals flame damage every second. And then burning enemies take 20% more damage from this ability. So remember what I said on the front bar, this deals burning status effect. That means that enemy is going to take 20% more damage from this. Moving on, this is kind of a floater skill. You can put anything here. I really like this ability because of the fact that it helps not only the group with crowd control and CC, but it also saves the tank some resources, so they don't need to bring this ability if they don't want to. They can bring a different ability for crowd control, but that is Burning Talons. Now, we bring this because it does deal damage to the enemy on initial cast, and it deals damage over 4 seconds. And an ally near the talons can activate an ignite synergy, dealing 10,000 flame damage to all enemies held within these talons. So it's a really good ability, and it's a group synergy, which is also really good. So it gives a little bit of resources back, and it deals a lot of damage. So that's the benefit of it. Alright, next ability is how we keep that. Remember, I was talking about that ultimate gen coming in, Molten Armaments. Now, this does have a 36-second duration, but you're going to be casting this every rotation. And the reason you're going to cast this every rotation, that 3 ultimate. That's what you want, that 3 ultimate coming in. Most of your ultimates cost over 200 ultimate, and you want to be able to get those fired off as quickly as you can. So that's why we have this on the back bar. Now, there are other abilities that you could technically use. You could use like Obsidian Shard, which deals flame damage. It also heals, which is nice, but at the same time, it's just not really powerful. And you have the Eruption, which does way better anyway. So you could use Shattering Stones, again, but this deals magic damage. And not really, that great, to be honest. I prefer the Molten Armaments also, because when you have this active, your heavy attacks, because you're going to be doing quite a bit of them, are going to do 50% more damage while active. So you want to keep this up quite a bit. And then, of course, we also have our Flames of Oblivion back here as well to keep up that Major Prophecy and Major Savagery. Even though we don't need the Savagery, we need that Prophecy. And it gives you a way of firing this off again if you need to. It does have a 15-second cooldown. So what I do is I use this whole entire back bar, swap to the front bar, and use this. And then I throw in some heavy attacks in here as well, and focus on the primary spammable Molten Whip. That's why Elfbane is there. Alright, last but not least, Standard of Might. Great ability. 1, it deals flame damage every second for 20 seconds for the duration. This is going to be the primary ultimate you use. It also applies Major Defile to the enemy, reducing their healing received and health recovery by 16%. And then standing in the standards area, you get a 15% damage reduction. And it is also a synergy that deals flame damage to the enemies in the area and immobilizes them for 5 seconds. So this is really good for boss encounters. This and especially that 15% damage increase and damage reduction. So the standing in the area gives that 15% damage done and reduced damage taken. That's why you can play this build and be up front with the DPS on it. You can actually play like you would a melee DPS with it. Alright, now that's the skills. Now we're going to go over the CP, but I want to explain something. I don't have all the CP spent because I'm just showing you what passives, what slottable abilities are going to be really good for it, and what passives you're going to eventually want to unlock completely. So the way the new CP system works is you have 2 types of active and active passive abilities. You have ones that are active all the time, and then you have ones that you have to slot. And in the way this build works, the ones you're going to slot are the ones you're going to use like in dungeons and trials primarily. Or even in PvP, because it helps out in PvP, trust me. In this case, we are using the... I would suggest unlocking all the passive ones, so like Out of Sight, I know it's sneaking, but this is for like PvP. Then you have like the Gilded Fingers, which gives you more gold. This one is Fortune's Favor, which gives you more gold found in treasure chests. Unlocking this for the crafting incentive, really don't need it, but it does help if you're going to be a crafter. And then Wanderer reduces Waste Shrine costs, Breakfall reducing fall damage, and then Soul Reservoir. When you resurrect a player with another player, you have a 33% chance not to consume a soul gem. This saves you soul gems for rezzing people. You have the Steadfast Enchantment. This one allows you to keep your weapon enchants without having to put a soul gem into them to refill them. And that just makes it a lot easier on you resource-wise, again, to keep that applied, not like keep those enchants up all the time without having to fill them in the middle of a dungeon or a trial. All right. Then you have Rationer. This is one of the slottables. This is the primary slottable I would suggest you get right away. This adds 10 minutes to the duration of your eating food and drink. So you end up with about 3 hours of a timer on your food if it's purple or gold. If it's purple food that has a two-hour timer, you get 3 hours with this. And the provisioning connoisseur and that you get longer times. You get 15 minutes more. So it helps out in trial runs, especially if you're learning to do trials. You're going to be spending a lot of time in trials, so having that greater resource, or greater amount of time on your food means you're not having to activate food in the middle of the trial and stuff like that. Moving on to the next one, liquid efficiency. Now, a lot of people are going to be like, why did you take this? It doesn't seem like it really fits. It's because of the fact that whenever you use a potion or a poison, you have a 10% chance not to consume this. This basically makes it to where every time you activate a potion for resource management, to keep that recovery amount coming in and to keep, your resources coming in, or even to keep upkeep of your major sorcery and, that kind of stuff, the spell damage, all that. This helps you do that more efficiently because of the fact that you have that 10% chance every time you use it that it doesn't consume it. So it basically gives you a double use of a potion, or even sometimes a triple. I have seen that. So next up we have Steed's Blessing. This is more of moving around, for movement in dungeons and trials, because when you clear a boss, when you get really good at doing dungeons and trials, this allows you to move through them a lot quicker, so you're not wasting time to clear the dungeon or the trial. You can actually get speed clears this way and stuff like that. So 20% increased movement speed for sprinting is awesome, or out of combat movement speed, is awesome. Professional upkeep. Now this reduces the cost of repairing armor by 1% per stage. So as you can see, you get a 50% cost reduction to repair your gear. This just saves you gold in the long term, because repair costs, the better equipment you have, the more the repair costs will be. So when you get to higher level and you get to better, you're really focusing on the gear you want to use full time, this will save you repair costs, a lot of them, because sometimes those repair costs can get up to 5,000 to 6,000. I know some people that's nothing, but for others that can be a lot. So these are really good for those purposes. All right, moving on now to the red tree. Now the red tree is more about resources, defenses, kind of stuff. Not so much defenses, but more about the fitness of your characters. So that's what this is about. It's managing your resources and everything like that. Again, same thing here. Unlock the yellow passive stars because they can do a lot for you. Some of these can reduce your roll dodge, some can reduce your break free costs, some can reduce your sprint costs, some even reduce your stealth detection, increase your stealth detection. Some even help with how much resources you get back when you're resurrected. And then, of course, you have things like this, which reduces your elemental status effects. And then you have things like this, which increase, when affected by status effects, you can increase your combat skills or reduce the cost of your combat skills or whatever. So you get all these different things, which are really cool. And you can also reduce things like your block cost, your the amount of damage you can block, and the bash damage or bash cost, and your bash damage that you do. So having a lot of these things is just extra, but the main things that you're going to want to focus on getting to are things like rejuvenation. This is going to give you more health, mag, and stam recovery, and this is a slottable. You will want this on your bar. It's going to help you out in the long run. If you need a little bit more resistance, Ironclad, really good. It gives you 1,731 champion points when it is on the bar, but we don't have it active right now. We have this one for the resources. Another good one is Slippery. This is actually a extremely well, just an extremely effective one for you. Because when you're affected by a disabling effect, you automatically break free for no cost. After using this effect, you become winded and cannot do it again for 21 seconds. It's kind of like a get out of jail free card. Then you have Expert Evasion. Your next roll dodge is cost is free. After consuming this, you can't do it for 30 seconds. Great for in trials, these two right here, and in dungeons. Last but not least is our primary one we're going to want to make sure we use all the time, and this is Siphoning Spells. So this is whenever you kill an enemy, you get 1500 magicka back. So if you're killing a lot of enemies with AoEs, you're going to stay up with magicka all the time. So, alright, moving on to the blue tree. Now with the blue tree, you get a lot more freedom with what you can do. So I would suggest basically again unlocking all the yellow passives. Now these aren't required right away. The max magicka one I would get right away. I would get these right here that focus on this side, and these up here right away. These are the primary ones I'd focus on getting and maxing out first. Then I would get this last one, which is Fighting Finesse. This one increases your critical damage and critical healing done by 2%. Now, some of the other things you can unlock are these passives here. Right here, the Staving Death. All of these, because they reduce like your martial damage you take, which would help you if you're wearing light armor. Reduces the magical damage you take. This helps if you're wearing heavy armor, which we are, so we can actually get that down to 1% damage. And then, of course, we also have this, which increases our healing taken, which if you're in heavy armor, you get increased healing taken or healing received. And then also Preparation reduces the damage you take from non-player attacks. So all NPCs in the game, you get another 8% with the extra 10% they gave you with the new update. Oh, lots of things you can do here. You can also take this one that whenever you deal direct damage, you heal for 7% of the damage done. This really helps out increasing your healing done with this build, because remember we have that the Iber thing, which is like the Flame Claws, which does damage and it heals you at the end of the effect. This can help with that a lot. It can give you an extra boost in healing. And then when it comes to a few other things, if you wanted to take them, there are some other things here you can take later on, along with some of these other passives down here, or even some of these defensive or the healing ones. It really is up to you what you want to do with it, but I really like the way this is set up right now. So, all right, now that I've shown you all that stuff, we're going to talk about rotation and how you're going to do it. So I'm going to use this little guy here to show you kind of the rotation. So the main thing you want to do with this rotation is, one, you want to keep your buff up, the weapon damage buff. You want to keep this applied as much as possible. Now, if you notice, every time you cast it, it's going to use quite a bit of resources because you are in heavy armor. So a little bit more heavy attacks are required for this build. But that's okay, because we're using a Fire Staff and we have this buff, we get a 50% increase in our heavy attack damage. So the way the rotation works is you're going to start with your Fire Breath. You're going to drop Wall of Elements. Now, I'm just showing you this without the light attacks in between. So you will do Fire Breath, Light Attack, Wall of Elements, Light Attack, Talons, Light Attack. You won't recast this unless you're doing the full rotation, but you will cast your Flames of Oblivion and then Light Attack. After your Flames of Ambition, you're going to Heavy Attack. And that's just going to give you that extra resources back, okay? Swap bars. Flame Lash, basically. Light Attack. Burning Embers. Light Attack. This. Light Attack. This. Light Attack. And then what you're going to do is you're going to hit the Whip. Heavy Attack. Whip. Light Attack. Whip. Heavy Attack. And the reason you're going to throw those heavy attacks in there is because it's going to help you sustain better. This build eats resources for breakfast. And the reason why you're in heavy armor. So you have to throw a few more heavy attacks in there, but those heavy attacks are going to give you that greater advantage of doing damage. So I'm going to show you the rotation, and I'm going to do it with a potion as well, so you can also see the resource management, which I'll show you. So we're at 1227 there. With a potion, you go to 1581. So let me do this full rotation again, so you guys can see it in full speed. So you're going to do Wall of, or the Burning Breath, and then you're going to heavy attack. Swap to the front bar, and go through all these abilities. Flame Whip, heavy attack, Flame Whip, light attack, Flame Whip, heavy attack. And then what you're going to do is you're going to do that again. That same thing. And then you're going to swap bar. So it's going to give you that greater resource management kind of thing. But this is, remember, now this is on a regular dummy. So you don't have as much resource management as you would with like a group with synergies and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to show you that now on that one over there. So let me go ahead and get this active. After I run out of that stuff, I got to wait for that dummy to stop being hit. Otherwise it's going to keep me in combat this whole. This is basically giving me all my ultimate and all that. Now I'm going to show you what this build would look like if you were doing damage to a, like, in a perfect scenario, okay? This is just going to kind of do that. So again, we want to keep up this buff, our potion, and then start. Oops. There I screwed up. Screwed up twice, actually. I'm going to have to throw my heavy attack in there early. I screwed up again, see? It's kind of, for me, it's a rough one. It took me a little bit to get it down, but it's not impossible. And it as you can see right now, you can sustain pretty well. This time I'm going to get the rotation right. So we're going to heavy attack, lava whip. Oops. So lava whip, light attack, lava whip, heavy attack, heavy attack. Lava whip, light attack, lava whip, and then heavy attack swap bars. I keep, every time I get to that bar swap to the front, I always forget to heavy attack. So now we're going to heavy attack, lava whip, light attack, lava whip, heavy attack. You can actually get away with a little bit more if you wanted to. And then the best rotation I have done on this is actually a little bit better than what I'm doing right now. As you can see, I'm kind of burning through a lot of resources here. There are other rotations you could do if you were really good. Like, you could actually lower the amount of heavy attacks you do and stuff. But you do go through a lot of resources and everything. And I do want to get Battle Standard out here real quick, so you guys can see what it's like with that. Yeah. And you remember what I said about the ultimate gen? Like, getting that one ability to ultimate gen better? You can actually sustain it better with this now, because of it. Like I said, those two abilities really allow you to build for really decent ultimate pretty quickly. Not super fast, but pretty quickly. And if you feel uncomfortable with the one rotation that I showed you in the beginning, there is another one that you can do, which is the one I'm doing right now. I'm gonna throw a heavy attack here real quick, because I want to be full when I get back to the front bar. Forgot the heavy attack there. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then heavy attack, and then swap to the back bar. It's just a matter of keeping up that resource management is the hard part for a lot of, will be the hard part for a lot of people, because you do go through a lot of resources, but the heavy attacks for this build is just insanely powerful. And the lava whip also can be really powerful, so. Alright, so I've shown you guys that. I'm going to move out away from it now. I would do the whole thing, the full thing, but I can already tell you, the best I've done is a 48k parse with this build, but I'm not a master of rotations. I'm still always trying to improve, though. Let's go ahead and let this run out. We're going to go take a look at the parse. And I'm going to break everything down in the parse for you guys. I also want to show you this. This is what our stats look like when we're fully buffed out. So we get 36k max magic, and 28k health, 19k stamina. And our spell crit comes in at 46% with 45k spell damage. Actually, it's a lot higher. It's almost 7k at times. Which I'll get to now. So let's go ahead and take a look at our parse here. And, okay, 6k spell damage here. That's really low compared to what I've gotten into also. So as you can see, 46% crit, 80% critical damage. We do have 2,000, well, we actually have max penetration on that thing, and it's actually working now. Molten Whip can, max hit was hitting for 45. Burning, not too bad. Flames of flame stuff. And then when you look at our heavy attacks, our heavy attack was hitting for 60k at times. We got 11 heavy attacks off in that, with 36 molten whips. Lots of damage over time, and that's what this build is all about. It's about damage over time, like keeping those dots up and then focusing on that spammable, the molten whip for your single target DPS. Everything else is about doing AoE or doing damage over time. So it works out really well. And as you can see, Grothdar went off 200 or hit 256 times. It actually has a pretty high uptime and everything, which makes it really good. So, and up here you can see normal damage. This is without critical. We were doing that, and then we crit 59% of the time, which isn't too bad for summoning in heavy armor, and especially with the new update. So 761,000 or 7,600,000, yeah, something thousand damage. It's crazy. Really powerful setup though. Really powerful if you get it down, the rotation and everything. I find the other rotation to be a little better, and I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys it so you guys can see. So it is basically like this. You do the fire breath, you light attack, wall of elements, light attack, talons, light attack, oblivion, light attack. And usually I'll throw a heavy attack after oblivion just to get those extra resources back. Lava whip, light attack, embers, light attack, reach, light attack, and then the eruption, light attack. Now when you get this far, you're gonna heavy attack again to get those resources out. Lava whip, light attack, lava whip, light attack, lava whip, light attack, lava whip, heavy attack, and then swap bars and do the whole thing over again. The reason for the 4 lava whips is because you do have that 5-second extra window because of Elfbane to keep that up, to keep up that constant lava whip, and to keep up that longer, like heavy attack, lava whip, lava whip, lava whip, heavy attack. or there's the other one where it's heavy attack, lava whip, light attack, heavy attack, lava whip, light attack, heavy attack. And that's a little bit easier way to sustain your resources. But remember, whenever you finish that back bar, heavy attack, the reason why you want your resources as full as possible all the time. The reason you want your resources full all the time is the more resources you have, the more you can make the stakes. Okay? Everyone makes them. Also, when it comes to blocking and everything, like I was talking about, the block bash thing, you know, you're not doing a lot of damage, but 2k damage when you're in a rotation and you've got to bash somebody real quick in the middle of it. And then look at the resources you know that you go through when you do it. Dodge rolling, same thing. Like, you go through quite a bit of resources. See, I can't even dodge roll because of how much it costs. So watch your resources really well, because it's really important that you play the build effectively. So, but that's pretty much it, guys, for this build. I would take it into a dungeon, but I figured it's a damage dealer. I needed to show you its damage and show you how to do the rotation and all that, more than showing it working in a dungeon. In group play, this thing is powerful. It is super powerful. I used to play it in the past, so I know that for a fact. And it is insanely powerful. So, speed clear, no problem. Especially in dungeons. You speed clear them all the time with this build. So yeah, really cool build, really fun to play. I hope you guys liked it. If you did, you guys know what's coming next. If you guys like this video, hit that like button. If you guys want to see more videos by me, you can subscribe. And if you do subscribe, I do suggest clicking that notification bell to be notified when I post new videos. Other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day, and this guy might see you in game. Bye.